Sonal and Alia.
Hi, good evening. We've had such great sessions this morning, and I'm very optimistic and determined that we're going to beat this one with ours. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You know, there aren't too many leading ladies in Indian cinema who can claim to have the kind of success that my guest here today has achieved. And at an age where most of us, if you'd recall, were barely starting out. And we'd see how she's kind of within a very short span of time grown as a superb actor, entrepreneur, and even now a producer. Before we start, could I please request you to put your hands together again for the National Award winner, Alia Bhatt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia. It's your debut at the HT Leadership Summit, and we're very, very happy to have you here. And I had to put that National Award icing in the introduction because you're really fresh out of that. I believe it's your first outing after the National Award.
Yes.
I really would want to start by asking you, what was going on in your mind, let's say 5 seconds before your name got announced and you went up there to get the award from the president?
Well, I have to say I was extremely enamored and just so impressed with how well organized it was, and there was so many people from so many different groups in the filmmaking industry, so technicians, actors, writers, cinematographers, sound recorders, everyone. And it was like clockwork, walking up and, everybody was clapping for everybody, and it was just so meticulous, and like I loved how well organized it was. So it was really very like overwhelming in general to be there, and it's like a pinch me moment. But 5 seconds before, if I have to actually recall exactly what happened, is actually quite a lovely moment that Kriti and I shared together, because she was standing in front of me, and she looked back at me and she said, I want to give you a hug.
Yeah.
And I just hugged her, and it was just like, and we both got emotional. It was just two young girls,
Yeah.
living the dream and feeling a moment of gratitude, and with gratitude sharing it with each other.
So lovely.
And literally we both had tears in our eyes after that moment, and then we had to like get out of the hug because we're like, we'll start weeping over here, which we don't want. So yeah, that was actually quite a special moment.
Lovely. And while we're talking about the National Awards, I think a lot of us also read about it, noticed it, Alia, that you chose to wear your wedding saree for the occasion. While it's also a very emotional statement, I'd like to say that it's also a big statement in sustainability. Nobody could have done it better to upcycle, recycle, whatever you may want to call it, your wedding saree. So was there a thought, conscious thought?
See, whenever there's a big event or a big moment coming up, the first thought is you start preparing for it. Okay, what am I going to wear? What am I going to do? And, how is it going to be? And when it was announced on social media, my mind instantly went to, okay, where is it going to be and what am I going to wear? And instinctively, I just felt like, I think I'm going to rewear my wedding saree. And it just felt very me, because that saree, was thought and ideated, done beautifully by Sabyasachi Mukherjee, but it was a lot of me, the white and gold combination and certain symbols. It was who I really feel, I wear a garment that I felt most myself in, So this was a moment that was also very special for different reasons. That was a different occasion which was extremely special, and this was a different occasion which was extremely special. So a special outfit can be worn for a special occasion.
True.
More than once. And I don't think I was doing anything that people maybe have not already been doing for many years. वो कहते हैं ना घर में कि शादी का साड़ी पहन लेंगे, या वो इसका संगीत का शादी पहन लेंगे, बेटी की शादी का साड़ी पहन लेंगे. It's just a thing that for those who may already be doing it, they look at it and say, yes, we're already doing this. It will just encourage them, that conversation more.
Yeah.
And for those who feel that, for a special occasion, I have to wear an outfit that's not been seen before. Has anyone seen this or not? I just wanted to change that a little bit around and just say, look, listen, you can wear an outfit. I've worn this outfit. The whole world has seen it.
Yeah.
Like for, days after I got married. But it doesn't matter. It's because it's the person that's wearing that outfit. That's what matters the most.
Yeah, I think the statement worked out beautifully, as you're saying. I would say commoners do say that bhai ki shadi mein pehen lenge, apni shadi ka joda, and all of that. But typically, I don't think too many celebrities, and especially those at your stature, who've gone ahead and made that statement. So it does seem very relatable to a common
Yeah,
person.
I think it's just us being mindful that you don't always need to buy a new outfit.
Yeah.
It's maybe the more conscious thing to do.
Yeah.
And you may not be able to do that all the time, but if you land up doing it a couple of times, it's a big statement to make for yourself.
True.
And for the planet.
So true. Well, before I go on, I'm just reminding the audiences that we'd have barely a few minutes after the session to take audience questions. So if you do want to ask her something, please, there's a chit on your table, and write something and pass it on to Rini, so that once we have time, we could look at that. So Alia, coming back to the last couple of years in your life, and that, I mean, I'm sure that there have been many milestone events that may have happened right when you debuted in the film industry 11 years ago. 23 films that you've done, and some of which have been spectacular in terms of performances.
I've done 23 films.
You've done 23 in 11 years, or that's what research tells us, unless there are films. I'm not counting your debut in Sangharsh as a child artist. Do you
I would
remember
count that because I think that's the only way it'll maybe add up to 20 plus. Anyway, yeah, the number not big. Yeah.
Perhaps. So basically what I'm saying is that last year, I think the middle of the last year, career-wise, started with Brahmastra, and then the way this year opened for you, and then, with Darlings, with Gangu, with now with Rocky and Rani. This all happened at a time when Bollywood's really been going through the biggest roller coaster that Bollywood could ever imagine. This year's been good with some of the blockbuster things, but there was also a time when people were just not willing to come to theatres. And Rocky and Rani did supremely well. And similarly, Darlings, even though it was an OTT film, again got you so much of acclaim. Would you say that this has been a milestone period for you? That's one. And a related question is that when you started out as Shania in Student of the Year so many years back, to Gangu, which got you a national award, and there's been Razi, there's been Highway, there's been Urta Punjab. Have you been going up that ladder on more intensity into your roles?
I think, yeah, what you said about there was a certain nervousness post the pandemic. I think in every industry, not just the Indian film industry, to understand how the consumer, how the audience is really going to respond to the content that we've created. A lot of the films that I had worked on prior to the pandemic, and some even during, came back to back with Gangu and Darlings and Brahmastra. This all just happened like back to back. So it was a very overwhelming year, because it's a lot of effort that you put in into any project or business. When you put in years of effort, teamwork especially, everybody's waiting with bated breath for the final outcome. So when you pass on the final outcome, that's always like a phew, it's a bit of a relief. I'm not sure I'm someone who takes a step back and looks at my career like, oh, that's a milestone moment, or that's a milestone moment. I don't cut to a wide shot that often in film language. I like to just keep my head in the game and just move forward with each, like literally on the Friday, I let the film go to the audience, and then whatever the fate of the film, I accept it. I assess if things don't go well, I assess what didn't go well. If things go well, I have a grateful heart and I move on. It's the way I've always been, and I think that keeps me really comfortable and grounded. I don't really swim in successes or, drown in failures. I like to learn, good or bad, from each experience and move on. But of course, when I meet people and they give me love for a movie, for example, Rocky Rani, I was in New York right after, and people kept coming up to me and telling me that they watched the film 3-4 times, and that's literally all you want to hear from an audience, and you just feel so happy. Speaking about my characters, what was your question?
Well, the characters that you've done, that growth in intensity is very visible. So, for instance, would you do a Shania at this point in your career?
Interesting. I don't think I can play, I don't know. Actually, never say never. I never limit myself.
Yeah.
I really go with my instinct. I definitely feel my personality, of course, as anybody's personality would, has evolved over the last 10 years. So maybe my choice of movies, the way I approach every film, the process has become more structured, but still I would say I have no structure when it comes to process. I like to just surrender to my filmmaker, and I believe every filmmaker is different from the other, so hence by default I will have a different process for every film.
True.
And I like to really just kind of give into it.
Yeah, but you know, you spoke about the box office pressure, and forever one's been hearing that while the box office pressure for the image or the stature of it is there for actors, the biggest stress point is for producers, because there was a time when actors would take their fee and at least would have a peaceful sleep, but a producer through every stage of the film has a restless time.
Of course.
And then you consciously chose to become a producer so early on in your career. You co-produced Darling, and now you're producing Jigra. So what made you take the risk, if I may call it, to turn into a producer so early on?
Yeah, so Jigra as well, I'm co-producing with Dharma Productions.
Yeah.
You know, I had such a lovely experience while working on Darlings as a producer. It was such a creative ride, and I learnt so much. And I genuinely believe, in fact, I was recently at the Olympic Committee session, and our Prime Minister was speaking, and he said something that really stayed with me. He said there are no losers in life, there are just winners and learners. And I believe I'm a learner. At every step, I'm always learning. I don't believe I have all the answers. And of course, it's a bit of a tightrope to walk when you're learning as a producer, because you know, you're putting something down there, you're putting content out there. But I just felt a very deep sense of satisfaction when I was creatively involved in that journey. I consider myself a creative producer.
Sure.
So that experience felt very wholesome. It felt very holistic. It was not inward. I was not just thinking about my acting, my role, how am I coming across in the film. I was thinking about the film as a whole. So I felt that, okay, now I want to put together content, not necessarily content that I'm acting in, and we are at Eternal Sunshine Productions working on various things.
Yeah.
And I also thought that it's a good opportunity, like I did with Darlings, to give support to a new talent, like I did with Jasmeet. She was trying to get a film on the floor for many years, and she came to me with Darlings, and I loved it, and she's extremely bright.
Right.
So that's the endeavor with Eternal as well. We're working with a bunch of new talent, currently still in development, but even putting that together and making that see the light of day is an uphill task.
True.
Because there is so much content out there that everyone, the studios, the platforms, everybody is playing it very carefully, as they should, because you don't want to just have, you know, n number of content pieces out there. So that itself is a learning step right now.
Well, marrying creativity with commerce is a tricky process, in the sense that a producer is always out to tell actors ki jaldi kar do, finish jaldi kar do, itna budget over budget ja raha hai, and you know, all those kind of hang-ups. So now, since you understand the actor's side of it, and you know that nobody wants to waste the producer's money, but still as a producer, when you worked on Darlings and now that you're working on Jigra, has the actor Alia changed a little bit, because there's also the producer Alia?
I think I was always very conscious. In fact, what changed in me as being a little bit more conscious on each day spent on shoot was after I started my own brand, Edamama. Then my attitude towards brand shoots changed. I was always very professional, always on time, always punctual, always, you know, do whatever the client and the agency and everybody wants. But there was a certain amount of just awareness that came after Edamama, my brand, my children's conscious clothing brand, came to life. Because I realized, okay, that every second matters, and it's all resting not all, but a lot of this is resting on the way this campaign comes out and the marketing of this campaign.
Right. You know, the fact that she's mentioned Edamama, I'm sure a lot of you would know, but when we call her a very astute and a very mindful investor, it'll be good to know that Edamama, her brand, which is in the line of sustainable clothing, got recently acquired by Reliance for 150 crores. That's not really what people expect out of a startup founder, to have so much time to give to your investment risk or whatever, your venture, your investment venture. So how much of your time goes into Edamama, and how did you feel when there was such a valuation done of your venture?
So actually, Edamama is a brand that I was the only sole founder of. So many people think that, you know, when you think of a celebrity and a brand, they're either investing in it or they're endorsing it. So they've not really done anything. There's no money that's been put down. Wo log aa rahe aur ja rahe. That kind of feeling sometimes comes. There is a perception.
Yeah.
But I have to be very honest and candid that the germ of Edamama came from actually a place of insecurity. It was 2 years or 4 years, 2 to 4 years into my filmmaking journey, and I was just like, listen, I never want to have all my eggs in one basket. So one should come up with another way of, you know, sustaining and to move forward, or something to put your mind to, because you never know, what if this doesn't work out, I should at least have something else, you know.
Yeah.
It just literally came from that very simple space. And I looked for the gap in the market, and there was a feeling that there was a dearth of a homegrown Indian vocal for local children's clothing brand.
Yeah.
And from there was born Edamama, and we launched in the middle of the pandemic, smack in the middle of the pandemic, which was a real struggle. I mean, literally break a leg situation happened. But there was only learning after that, and it's been such a fulfilling journey. It's not always easy for me to give my time to it, which is why I put together a team of ninjas. I call them ninjas because they really are like that. And we started with a team of 4 to 5 people, and now to have, you know, a giant like Reliance come on board. And I was not looking for money as much as I was looking for a strategic partner, because we had done the clothes thing. You know, I launched maternity when I was pregnant, filling a gap in my own wardrobe. And I felt like, okay, now there's a point where in which I can strategize and build this brand further.
To give it scale.
To give it scale.
Yeah.
And I have this whole world of Edamama in my head. And I'm a storyteller at heart. And I will always be a storyteller. And Edamama also started with a story. And the story is of a young girl and her dog, Ed, and they go on adventures and they save the planet. Wow. And they talk to the planet, and they talk to the trees, and they talk to animals. And that's the ideology behind it. So we put that and we made it a conscious clothing brand, which is also affordable. So it came out of a place, but it turned into something that I didn't expect it to turn into. So I'm very grateful for all the people that I, you know, on my team that helped me bring Edamama to where it is.
Sure.
And yeah, now the journey has begun.
Now that it's picked up scale, घर में वो बढ़ गई है, अपना impression घर में ये हो गया कि any financial decisions, let's ask Alia, because she clearly is the more mindful investor in the family.
I think definitely there is a certain, but I don't think we ever मतलब give, वो घर के अंदर घर में कोई praise नहीं करता है, you know, हम लोग always थोड़ा सा, you give love also with a little bit of like, okay, let's not get it, you know, don't want to get to anyone's head. But in my life, it's still my mother who makes all my financial decisions. Without her go ahead, I do nothing.
Well, then I must say that you've made your mom very proud with the way, because Edamama is something that we know of, but there are also a few other investments, like this one which is picking up flowers from the temple pool and turning it into home fragrances. What a beautiful idea. And again,
exactly. You know, so you're on one hand, you're lessening the waste possibly that comes, but you're also giving a lot of job opportunities to women, because the women are picking these flowers up and they're adding, you know, to this incense and stuff. And there's a lot of other things that are planned for in pool as well, that are not only good for the environment, not only good for the planet, but also giving so many more job opportunities to women.
Wonderful. And another thing that happened big time in your life's journey last year was marriage, followed by motherhood, and we'd come to that. But marriage Again, you know, from the Bhatt family to being a part of Kapoor Khandan. Again, both film families, were these families very different? Did your daily life really as a married woman change from one family to the other?
No, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I really, of course, there's a certain, I think, I would say my life really truly changed after my daughter was born. That's when the change really came. Otherwise, you know, the way our families kind of immediately got along, there was a lot of warmth, there was a lot of love. And that didn't really change overnight just because we got married. That warmth and love was there a day before the wedding, and that same warmth and love was there a day after. But yeah, the minute Raha came into our lives, it's just sunshine and stars and, you know, clouds and rainbows.
So I think this Eternal Sunshine, the name of your production house actually should refer to Raha. Or it does maybe. Is that how the name came about?
No, actually Eternal Sunshine was inspired by a film that I love a lot, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I also love the sun. I'm obsessed with the sun. Like whenever I'm, you know, typing anything, and the sun emoji is my favorite emoji to go to. I also believe movies are eternal. So they kind of came together, and yeah.
Well, we've spoken about motherhood now, and let us talk about Raha, because, you know, what I did was that before coming on to this session, I tweeted about what are the questions that people who can't make it here would like to ask us, would like me to ask Alia. And I think the maximum number of questions were pertaining to Raha. She turns a year old day after. Knock on wood, there's been so much talk about how you've been lovely protective parents. I do remember my team telling me, my team of photographers telling me that even though Ranbir and Alia do not want the child to be photographed for right reasons, your choice of privacy, but they were very sweet in showing us off the record, showing us the photograph, because they wanted blessings for the child. So how has Raha's coming into your life changed the career part of you? Because I'll tell you where I'm coming from. This is also a very typical perception amongst common people that privileged लोगों को बच्चे पालने में मुश्किल नहीं होती. You know, there are nannies, there's a battery of people who are going to be taking care. So they can have a child and then very soon come back into a very hectic professional life. But with Raha, has that happened? And how do you look at this whole experience of now having a career with Raha also a priority?
See, there is truth to privilege, and I have to acknowledge that I do have the comfort of professional help if I am unavailable and if I need to be somewhere. A lot of mothers don't have that, and I can't begin to imagine how difficult that might be. Having said that, I'd rather answer this question from a different lens, as how is it as two working parents, as a man and a woman who love their work and who don't want to lose that side of them, but also want to be extremely present parents. How do we handle?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of young generation, you know, parents together today, maybe if they're watching this, they might have a little doubt if they're expecting that how will they manage. And the truth is, you have to have your priorities right. My priority and our priority will always be Raha and Raha first.
Yeah.
And while our work is a huge part of who we are, and I don't want to lose that side of me, because it's what makes me happy, it's what keeps the fire alive. And feeding, and I was there, and just time for my body to sort of bounce back. And when I took up Jigra, Ranbir cleared his schedule out for the next couple of months, so I could be at work at ease and not think and not be worried.
And there are night skeds in Jigra.
Exact. A lot of night schedules, which actually work out really well for me, because I get the day with her. I'll end up sleeping only 5 hours, but I think that's one of the things you give up as a parent, you sleep less. But I also want to say, I think we as celebrities maybe get asked this question a lot, so we suddenly like build up the celebrity, or like how is it being like working parents or working mothers. But women work, yeah. You know, my nanny who comes for my work, she has 3 kids at home.
Kids of her own, yeah.
And even the women who stay at home and work, that's also work. Stay-at-home moms are also working.
Lots.
A lot. खेत में भी अगर जाते तो बच्चे को साथ में लेके जाते हैं या स्कूल में ड्रॉप करके, मतलब वो बहुत नॉर्मल चीज है. Working is a very huge part of our culture. We're workers and we'll work till the last breath. So I think we're giving ourselves or maybe celebrities too much importance. But I have to be honest and candid and say that you can't do everything right, but you can't be a perfect parent. You just have to be good enough.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep your priorities straight. And of course there are days where I'm emotionally, like, it is difficult for me to leave her. And even for coming to Delhi today, like I guess I just want to keep kissing her face. I don't want to even leave for a second. But wo hai, and she's, touch wood, she's okay, she's happy.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and I'll get all my cuddles and love and, make sure she's not out of my sight.
I'm sure.
So and the balance is important.
Yeah, and if you and Ranveer have to travel, again it's mummy ji or mummy, either of the moms taking care of.
Yeah, I think her grandparents, they are waiting for a chance. They're like, please, tum log holiday pe jao, leave her with us. We want all the time with her. Yeah. So yeah, that way I'm very blessed to have not only, of course, the professional help, but a really enthusiastic family. That's always willing to babysit.
Another thing that your fans wanted to know was that now that she's turning a year old, are they likely to see a glimpse of her?
So I have to say this because I think, like, again, where I don't want it to seem like, oh, I'm hiding my daughter's face and all. I'm proud of her. Like, literally the camera's not rolling right now. I'll put her giant image up on a screen over here because I love her. Like, we're proud of our baby. But I think I think the intention with which it came out initially is we are new parents. We don't know how we feel about her face being splashed all over Instagram. She's barely a year old, or all over social media. We don't find the need for her to be a moment of paparazzi currently. She's still too little. But it's not like we'll never let anybody see her face. It's not that. It's just like I think we needed to get more comfortable with this parenting thing and come to a comfortable decision ki, okay, now we're ready. And whenever that moment is, it could be now, it could be in the near future, it could be whenever. Whenever we're ready, it'll happen. And
Fair
without
point.
giving it too much pressure or too much importance.
True that. Fair point. Alia, another thing that happened recently in your career was a lot of international exposure. One by way of Heart of Stone, which was a film that you did. But also by way of some international collaborations, like you took up the Gucci ambassadorship, you attended the Met Gala. Has there again been a conscious decision that being an international influencer is now the way to be, because we are all thinking global?
See, I think, like, for example, doing a film like Heart of Stone was a choice of doing an English language movie. Like the year before that did a Telugu language movie. Like maybe hopefully in the near future I'll do a Malayalam language movie or I think the idea is to broaden your horizons, to as many languages, reach out to as many, industries, get outside your comfort box and comfort zone again and again. So that was the intention. And whereas Gucci and everything else, I think I've said this before, it's an association that I feel is most organic because of how much I believe in I really naturally connect with the products of the brand. But Gucci has come to me because Gucci wants India. Gucci doesn't want me. Gucci wants India. And I represent maybe a certain demographic that speaks to, a certain section in India. So I think it's only proof of how booming the Indian market is and how much anticipation there is to bring on the consumers from India to global brands as well.
So for instance, when you went to the Met Gala, and now that India is practically a growth story that everyone seems to be talking about, did you see a perceptible difference in the way now Indian celebrities are being treated abroad?
I didn't feel anything different, so I think that's the difference. It was, I was treated the way anybody should be treated. Yeah.
A lot.
Of course, South Asian representation can only become better and better. I don't think we should ever stop there. That can only become more. But like even when I'm traveling and there was somebody sent me a picture of a Mandarin Oriental shoot that I did for Mandarin Oriental in Paris, and somebody sent me that picture. And I just looked at it and I smiled and I said, I just need to continuously keep in mind no matter where I go, whether it's London or Paris or Met Gala or for Gucci to Milan or whatever, I'm always taking India with me. And I represent that side of where we come from. And that's something that I'll always be very, I'll take very mindfully and be very responsible of.
Yeah. And this is particular of women celebrities, though I'd say that everyone has that pressure now, but all your appearances, not yours, but all celeb appearances, especially at international forums, etc., also attract a lot of attention, positive or negative, on social media. Not just the appearances, and you've been at the receiving end of it, but again for everyone, this whole phenomenon of social media trolling becoming excessive, personal, sometimes toxic, if I may use that word. People have an opinion on someone's married life, their relationships, how they are in terms of with their other colleagues, etc. So it's come your way, and how have you, does it anger you, does it bother you, and if it does, how do you deal with it?
So, I mean, I said this earlier, I've lived my life in the public eye. So, I've gone through different stages with any sort of scrutiny that maybe I've faced. Maybe initially I was a little bit more defensive, you know, younger, you're a little bit more like, but why are they saying this? Maybe later on I was a little bit more dismissive, like, forget it, nobody cares. But I think I've grown into a person who genuinely feels that I have nothing to complain about. And I don't think it's fair, the position that I'm in, maybe the privilege that I have. It doesn't look nice for me to be like, oh, I don't like that people are saying maybe not nice things about me. I don't feel that that's correct. So even though maybe sometimes you don't want to read nasty things about you or your relationships or your family or your loved ones or anything like that. You don't want to do it. Nobody enjoys it. But I'm not going to ever fight with my audience, because those people writing it, they're my audience. So as long as my movies are doing well and I'm entertaining them, when I say I'm grateful for all the love, these are the moments that I actually have to show my gratitude. Not only when things are all hunky-dory and people are clapping for me, but maybe when there are no claps and there's a bunch of trolls. I still have to maintain that gratitude because that came my way. And I am here who I am because of the audience.
True.
So yes, I also feel it's important to differentiate between constructive criticism and just endless hate, because a person can just look at me and not like my face, and I can't really do anything about that. So I have to also differentiate between the two. But I also feel we have become extremely sort of subjects of what we see on that screen. I'd rather focus on my daily interactions with people. I've never experienced that any kind of troll upfront, for example. No negativity upfront. So that's what I choose to focus on. And if there is some chatter, I hope it dies down and you know, you kind of move forward. I'm at the end of the day, I'm a human being. That I'm bound to say maybe 4 stupid things in public, and people may make fun of that. But I may also say 14 intelligent things.
Exactly. Yeah.
But sometimes what happens is also kind of negativity travels faster than positivity.
Yeah.
But I believe in the larger picture. So I want to only lead every moment with love and kindness, and love conquers all. That's all I need to say.
Well, that's so true. And also, social media sometimes seems unforgiving, but if the other person is willing to accept and sort of, for instance, Karan was earlier here with Charlize Theron in a session, and he, in a very nice but a self-deprecating way, he was talking about all things that he's been trolled for and how it used to affect him beyond a point, and he would shy away from talking about that, but he's now talking so openly about the very things that he'd been trolled for.
Yeah.
So
I think it's about, like, it's not like we are, nobody's unfazed. I mean, nobody gets like unaffected by any sort of negative, like you have moments of vulnerability.
Yeah.
You have moments of feeling, okay, you know, did I say something wrong or did that come across that way? And you feel even maybe regret, okay, I shouldn't have said that or I shouldn't do that. Maybe also I have become more personal, as I become more private a person as a result. But it's not like I'm ever going to fault anyone for it. I've never even in my life spoken back or say, you can't say this about me or you don't say this about me. Even when people, like sometimes lies, like complete lies are spoken.
Yeah.
I've never said anything back because I believe that's not the way I want to conduct myself. I'm openly going to be vulnerable, but I'm openly also going to be kind and accepting. Ki jo bolna hai bolo. As long as you enjoy my movies and as long as I manage to entertain you,
Yeah.
that's all that matters.
And with each of these movies that are turning out to be successes, and your role getting more and more evolved and mature, does that also act as a sort of vindication for the fact that now you're being offered very, very intelligent, if I may use that word, intelligent roles?
Yeah, I've always had touch wood, good roles come my way with good filmmakers, and maybe I've become, like I said, because after thinking like a much larger picture, maybe my mind and space has opened up a little bit where I'm not just paying attention to the role, but I've always actually been the one who goes for the film first,
Yeah.
and then you work on the role, because if the film works, everything works. So yeah, I think I'm very grateful for all the people that I've worked with, and am working with, and sometimes you have to create opportunities or create, like sometimes you feel like doing a certain part or you feel like putting a certain thing out there. I may have to create that opportunity for myself. तो वो देखेंगे जब होगा.
You know, a lot of actresses that I've known all along do not like the term female-centric or women-centric movies, and I think for the right reasons.
Correct.
Because unless there are male-centric movies, which there aren't, so why should they be women-centric? But the kind of roles that you've done, let's say with the Razi or Darlings or Gangu, there seems to be a statement that you're making in terms of taking the entire onus of how that film would do or not do on your shoulders. Is that too much of a stress? Is that a stress, leading the film on your shoulders?
I would say yes and no. Yes, only because, I mean, if the film, God forbid, were to not do well, it does sort of reflect badly on your report card. But no, also because it's not just me making the movie. And I say this, it's not just Alia acting and Alia directing and Alia talking to Alia and being with Alia. It's not just that. A film comes to life because of various factors together. So when a film does well, it's not just my success, it's the whole team's success, and most importantly, the director's success, because the director is the captain of the ship. So I actually rely wholly and solely on my director, and I genuinely believe that if the film is good, it'll do well. A good film will always do well, and a good film can't do well with one person. So yes, there is that pressure. Maybe I will take for my, just for my satisfaction, that okay, I hope ye chal jaye types. But I know that at the end of the day, it's a team effort, and jo hoga so hoga types.
But you're not averse to any genre, and when I say genre, I mean also in terms of doing multi-stars. And now that you've seen success as a person who can take the entire film on their own shoulders, these multi-star film, full masala films with several actors, etc., is still on, right?
I think it depends on, again, it depends on the film,
script,
and it depends on the part and what I'm adding to it. I think ensemble films are great. Films when you get these various actors together and they're all playing a little part and contributing to the larger picture. I think it looks really fun, and you feel really happy, especially when you see your favorite actors come together. So I think it really just depends. For me, it's all on the script, and I don't think too many other actors in the film, I don't want to do it. I'm not giving myself so much importance ever.
Which is your favorite role? Which is a film that you've felt very, very proud for having signed? And if at all there's a film that you regret passing by?
Difficult to choose between your own films. So I would say I'm going to use what someone said to me. The next one is always the best one. So the next one is the one I'm most excited about, you can say, which is Jigra. I have no regrets of passing anything on, because I also feel, and that sounds very cliche, but it is true, because I feel like I am here today because of all the mistakes I made and the right choices perhaps that I've made. I have other regrets, like not regrets, but I wish maybe, now when I reflect 11 years into the industry, I wish I'd picked up maybe a dance form 11 years ago that I should have seen through. You know, I think it would have made me a much better maybe dancer, helped with my posture and body language a bit. Maybe I should have picked up like a sort of like a martial arts or something like that. So I have those sort of things where I'm like, I know they say it's never too late, but I think of it in that way now, more of an assessment of like a holistic way about how I could maybe today have been better if I had maybe picked up something physical a couple of years ago. And I think that would be the only advice I would give to people, is that pick up one sport, one dance form, or something which is physical. It'll bring a completely different body language in you.
Yeah. Well, as a 30-year-old and having achieved so much again in terms of acting and production, is direction on the cards, if at all? At this moment, does that thought even occur?
No. I think I would be a very impatient director. You have to be very, very patient to be a director. No, I don't think I have it in me. Also, at least, again, never say never, but I think I don't have that kind of command over a story to tell it. I can aid other storytellers together and kind of push them together and say, okay, go have fun. As a producer, I can do that. But I don't think I can be the one telling the story myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does seem
although
like...
although Sanjay sir, sorry to cut you.
Yeah.
Sanjay sir, Sanjay Leela Bhansali once told me, Alia, you should direct a film one day. And I'm like, sir? He said, yeah, you will see. So I said, and coming from him, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Well, on Sanjay, tell us the experience of working with Sanjay, somebody like him, when film is actually like in its true sense an art form, right, from the sets to how he makes a person. And now with Baiju Bawra, people have a lot of, there is anticipation in the air. I don't know if you can talk about any of that or not. But tell us about Gangu and the experience with Sanjay.
I've said this before and I'll say it again, that I was never the same actor after once I walked into the sets of Gangu by Kathiawadi and I walked off that set, I was no longer the same actor, no longer the same person. And that's just what Sanjay sir brings out of you. I felt like I could do anything after doing that movie. And, you know, of course the next challenge will definitely come up, but it just feels so rewarding and so, it's a very giant self-journey experience along with your filmmaker, with him that I had. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of just daily giving everything that you had.
Is he
not
the
1%
strictest
more.
director that you've worked with?
I wouldn't call him strict. He's not strict, like he's a creative, like he's a creator, he's a magician, like he brings the magic out of you, but for him it's more about like, I remember we used to keep joking about it. We used to, every time we used to start a scene, we used to first talk about the scene, you know, like we call it a blocking or a rehearsal. So before every scene, when he would start talking about it, he would say, this is a very important scene. This is the most important scene, which he would land up saying eventually about every scene in the film. So finally I was like, sir, every scene is important. He started laughing. He said, yeah, that's the way I go with every scene. It's too important. Like, this is what the film relies on and stands on. So you have to go into it with that conviction and with that energy, and you land up giving it your all, and you'll be like, by the end of it, you know, I don't even know how time would pass on that set. It's just honestly, truly one of the most rewarding experiences.
I think there must have also been a work culture stuff that you may have picked after working with Sanjay, because that's how he is on the sets. So somebody was telling me that even on the sets of Jigra, for instance, now, or maybe that's been a habit. You don't take your phone and you're completely into it when you're shooting. So has that been a habit? Is that something that you've picked up?
Yeah, actually, strangely, it started from his set, because everybody is so onto it. I would not look at my phone and all in between shots, and it's a very bad habit because you're waiting around and you're just like scrolling endlessly on your phone. But with him, everybody is just sort of on their best behavior, on their toes, and you also don't feel like you want to get out of the moment and go. And we would shoot a lot of nights there as well, so there's really nothing to go to the phone to. So apart from now, you know, just maybe checking up, you know, on every odd thing at home. Otherwise, in fact, when I'm on a shoot schedule, I don't even, like, I delete all my social media and I make sure none of that is there, so I have no distraction. And I like also maybe feeling a bit bored. Like I think a lot of us sometimes forget that, okay, just looking endlessly at the sky or looking at something and just dozing and or trailing off is something that you can do and not always be kind of neck down into the screen.
True that, true that. But outside of films, what is your me time go into?
Well, now my me time is all Raha time. But of course, a lot of it is just working out, sleeping, watching movies, catching up on content, reading, just the usual.
But
Spending time with family.
I know. This year's been wonderful for the films, for the big films, and people have started to say that only films that are completely large, huge in canvas in terms of, and Brahmastra was one such film, and now one is looking forward to part 2. But even with Jawan, Pathan, big action films. Where does that leave us with those who would want rom-coms, small, nice, script-packed?
No, so I think that the rom-coms and the romantic films can do well. I think what one has to keep in mind is the budgets when you're making those films. Like I said, I believe a good film will always do well. Of course, we know the big potboiler, the massive entertainer films, the tentpole films, people are rushing to the theaters for because they are the larger, they are the larger-than-life experience. But it is important for the mid-level budget films to do well as well in the theatre, and the small budget movies, or small budget as you call them. But I think time will tell as to how one, as producers and as people, we manage the economics versus the money coming in, and which kind of films people are stepping out for, and which ones they're happy to watch, maybe sitting at home. Because it's also become very expensive to go to the movies. So I think one really has to consciously make that decision, okay, I will go out for this particular movie. So it's on us actually to manage the budgets accordingly, maybe for the mid-level films.
And if budget hadn't been a constraint, let's say from a producer's perspective, do you think a film could do as well on OTT, or does a film in its real sense needs to be a theatrical to reach the largest number of people?
I think the theatrical is more immediate understanding of commerce. OTT takes time, it's more word of mouth. But a good film will always leave an impression in people's hearts and minds.
Look at Darling.
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to speak of my own film, but I feel like sometimes what happens is we in fact should forget where we saw the film. It should just be we saw that film and we loved it. So actually a lot of people saw Gangubai on OTT much after, on Netflix, across the world in fact. But it had an impact on them, and that's what matters. So of course the commercial success of a film matters for the producer and for the makers involved, and for us to declare it a successful venture. But ghoom phir ke, the film has to connect. And if the film will connect and the budget is not crazy, then it will be a success. I mean, it's not as simple. I'm making it seem super simple. But it's all against the same thing. You focus on the film, tell the story and tell it well.
Yeah, and now even in telling that story, languages also have ceased to matter. So there is no South-North anymore.
No, as it shouldn't be. It's the Indian film industry, and that's the way it should be.
Another thing that a lot of fans wrote to me about was whether they can see you working with Rajamouli again and again, how is that experience? You've really worked with legends, so there is a lot. No wonder this is how evolved you've been as a 30-year-old actor.
Very kind of you to say. I mean, of course, I think every actor in the country is waiting to, be in a SS Rajamouli film. So I'm just in line.
But do I see a hint in that I might do a Malayalam film? Is there a hint for the fans?
No, ye maine aise hi bol diya because I'm watching Malayalam content and I love it. But I'm just saying that what I meant is that I want to do as many languages, if time permitting, and if my skill can add to that or not.
Right. We've almost come to the end of our time. And Rini, are there any audience questions? Rini's gossiping. Are there any audience questions that you've received? You haven't. So I wanted to actually end this with, again, the one question which maximum number of people asked me to ask you, which was your advice to a lot of people who want to be entering the film industry, where there's a lot of percepted fear about there's so much of struggle, you can't, if you don't know people, you can't really get a chance to get a foothold, etc. You've been there, seen it. What is your mantra or advice to
Honestly,
aspiring actors?
yeah, I don't think I'm in a position to give advice because I think, you know, speaking about that conversation, there is a certain feeling of maybe I had it too easy in the beginning, and maybe I got the opportunity too quickly, which perhaps earlier I had a different response to, but now I think I only look at it from a point of empathy, because I understand it's really, really hard. And I empathize with that, and I can only acknowledge the maybe speedy start that I got. But I do promise and kind of vow to give it my 110% every day. Like, I got into the door easy, but once I'm in the room, I'm really working hard, and I need to continue to work hard for the audience. So I feel uncomfortable giving advice because it may not be perceived well.
Really, that's a torture that you've inflicted on me now with this. Okay, Rahul Gupta has a question which says, what do you think about the future of multiplexes in this rising era of OTT?
Oh, very interesting question. I really believe, Rahul, that the theatre experience in a country like ours cannot be replaced. Because there is a certain community feeling of families going out to the theatre and watching a movie and enjoying that film together. So I do feel we maybe as an industry have to work harder. Yes, the multiplexes, there is a lot of chatter and conversation that, you know, the concessions inside and the food and beverage, etc., land up being very expensive, even more so than the ticket. So I think one has to really, maybe the stuff that comes into the big screens has to really be worth people's while. And that is the endeavor. I think it's always a learning process, it's always a learning curve, but the last month has been quite fabulous for the industry. So people are very charged to learn from that and take that forward.
Super. And there's another question from Jigyasa, and she says this is about Edamama and how you know, do your personal beliefs coincide with the vision statement, which actually you've answered in a way. But now that there is a physical store also.
There's a pop-up. We will have physical stores soon.
Yeah.
And yes, my personal beliefs do coincide with the philosophy of Edamama. I have to say though, again, I mentioned this before, that we are human. So I may not do everything right, or may not take every right step towards being conscious towards our planet, towards our environment. But it's just about asking those few questions, maybe seeking those few answers and taking those tiny steps towards living a more conscious future. Because it's a shared planet and we have to leave it behind for our kids and the generations to come. So the conscious clothing brand came from being more aware with what fashion can do, maybe, to the rising carbon levels. So use natural fabrics and no plastic and natural dyes and green denims and stuff like that, and recycled paper and recycled plastic or whatever packaging. But also the prints and stuff on the clothes are all raising a younger, newer generation of young planeteers.
Beautiful. Well, these are very, very wise, sensible words from Alia Bhatt that we are ending this session on. Alia, all the very best.
Thank you
for
so much.
Jigra and for everything that you decide to do in your future. And thanks a lot for taking out the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,